Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Happy Friday. Happy Friday morning. TGIF, which has meaning for so many people except me. Friday, for me, is just another day. Anyway, I'm glad everybody enjoys Friday. I see people are starting to come in. Welcome. Welcome to Morning Coffee with Mitch. Who else but Mitch? Good to see you all this morning. Made a change of scenery this morning. I am in the studio. I'll tell you the story about my adventures last night. Technical adventures in my private live stream and my outdoor notebook computer. But that's a story for a little later. For right now, I had a suggestion that maybe I could find a more appropriate background than one of these upscale coffee shops when I do an indoor live stream. And a greasy spoon was suggested to me. So today, my friends, as we prepare to drink it if we got it, I moved my base of operations to a diner, to a traditional greasy spoon where they serve bacon, eggs, coffee. Oh yeah, I'm sure they serve some junk in here, but we'll use this for a little while, and I hope you like it. At any rate, drink it if you got it. And I have another new cup here, and I never did get to tell you the story about the last cup, the last new cup, but I got two new cups, and this is one of them. And this one says, I'm not arguing. I'm just explaining why I am right. My daughter got me this. Again, she knows me too well. So drink it if you got it. As people are coming in, fade out the blues there, and get ready to deal with this morning. How is everybody? Wow, look at you all. A lot of emojis in the chat. And it is Friday, and it's the 28th. The 28th of February, the end, not a leap year this year, the end of February, March 1st, tomorrow. March comes in like a lion, goes out like a lamb, maybe. But hopefully we've gotten through the worst of winter. And for me anyway, there'll be fewer hoodies and sweatshirts and more nice t-shirts. And I'm wearing a brand new t-shirt today. I want to show it off. It says, it's like Caribbean themed. It's got a Mai Tai or some kind of a drink on it. And on the back, let me show you the back. Let me see if I can do this. On the back of this shirt is this big tropical looking mural, and it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous, and my daughter bought this for me for Christmas, along with the coffee cups, some short pants, some beautiful new tropical shirts, which I don't have an opportunity to wear very often, but one morning I will show them off to their gorgeous shirt she bought me. And she does that for me every Christmas. Christmas, you say, was 2 months ago. Yes, I know. Problem is, she buys me all these presents and she keeps them at her house over there. They're at her house over in the Tampa area, and I'm over here in Orlando. And it never fails. Between Christmas and sometime early in the next year, I keep trying to get over there, and everything just keeps getting in the way in my life and in her life too. And when I did get over to Tampa for the meetup at Kelsey's, my daughter and her husband were spending that weekend in Orlando at Disney at a friend's house. So I missed her then too. And the Christmas presents are just sitting there all wrapped up, waiting for me to get over there. And finally, she said, well, I'm just going to throw them in a box and UPS them to you. So a few days ago, I got this box from UPS. I went into my shop. I set up a video chat with my daughter, and we had a nice visit for maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes, and I opened her all of her presents. And it was just neat. It was neat. And that's when I got the new coffee cups. The one that I drank from the other day that says, I'm white, Republican, male, straight male. How else can I piss you off today? and she also sent me this cup, which is cool. I'm not arguing. I'm just explaining why I'm right. So today I'm sporting my new cup, my new tropical light blue t-shirt here. And it's very, very comfortable. And I am in a great mood today. It's beautiful outside. It's beautiful outside, and it's going to be a great day. Got a little change of scenery going on here. Trying to keep it from becoming too repetitious and too boring for you guys every morning, and come up with some new things. And I have some things that I want to talk about today. A few little things, nothing much in the show notes. While people are still pouring in, let me jump to the portion of our show where we see who actually won the race this morning and was first in at the bell. Last night, first into the chat was Nikki W. It's almost Friday, y'all. This was last night. Hi, Nikki, followed by the Feral Grandma. As usual, Mike Seeley from Tampa chimed in last night at about 10:30 in the evening. Francine Bourgeois from Montreal. How you doing, Francine? Good to see you. Lady June, early in the morning over in London, chimed in at 12:15 a.m., which was about 5:15 in the morning for her. Steve Studley chimed in. No insomniacs last night. Steve chimed in at 6:08 a.m. this morning. Good to see you, Steve. Greg Smith says, morning all out there on the road. He was in the private community chat with us last night in the panel from Missouri, and we had a great time last night. It was a great time. We had not the biggest panel, but we had some great people. Tina Schweigerath joined us, but had technical difficulties and disappeared after a short time. We had C.B. Carmack. He's always entertaining and showing off some of this memorabilia that he collects. And we had Greg in there. We had a good time. Gary Noslow tried to come in for a little while, but was having all kinds of audio problems, and we couldn't hear him on his cell phone. He evidently never got that straightened out. But Gary, it was good to see you there last night, even if it was short and brief and fairly silent. But we had a great time, and for about an hour and a half. And a funny thing happened during the live stream, and I'll talk about that now. Well, let me get through this and get to the bell, and then I always say I'll talk about things. I tell you I'm going to tell you a story, and then it's just something else comes along and takes its place. Lori, good morning, Lori. How you doing? Friday, yes. Yes. Ah, you'll miss this one. Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that, but we'll see you tomorrow morning on Saturday, probably. Wayne Herman says, good morning from Lake Gaston, North Carolina. Rick is up and awake in Miami. Mike Seeley Sr. says, it's a beautiful sunny morning here in Melbourne. And yes, it is. It is gorgeous. It is gorgeous outside. But that's okay. I'll do it from inside today. I want to tell you the story about that, too, if I get to it. Mark Booth was with us last night for a while. It was always great to see Mark from St. Lucie, Florida. Good to see you, my friend. And glad you're here this morning. Michael Pregler, back from the weight room, of course, movie 420. Says, good morning, glories. It's a great day on planet Earth. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Northwood Trains joined us here. And we still haven't gotten to 9 o'clock yet, but Lynn Gerber's here. How you doing? Good to see you. Harry Dion, good morning, Mitch, and everyone, he says. Kathy, Florida. Beautiful sunrise in South Florida. Yeah, the weather has turned gorgeous. Weather's turned gorgeous. Meatitudes wants to know how everyone is, and Solitary Carnivore says good morning. Good morning to you, my friend. How are you? We have Jerome Mussaw. Good morning. I hope everyone's doing well today. Yes. And at 9:22, Charles Faircloth chimed in. I chimed in just to let you know I was alive and well and sitting at the switch ready to click the go button. Tanya, hiya Tanya, how you doing? Went through Mitch withdrawals because I missed Thursday, but I'm ready now. Mitch Fitz Unite, good to see you. Good to see you, Tanya. Glad you're here. Glad you're here, sweetie. Deborah Wise Gal is here. Good morning, Mitch. Time to get up and make coffee. Yes, yes it is. At 9:28, Aaron Booby Goats chimed in. Greg Smith, fresh cigar and a cup of coffee. Let's do this. I'll drink to that, Greg. I won't smoke to it today, but I will drink to it. Okay. That's good. That's good. At 9:28, Jemmet chimed in. Scott Elliott chimed in at 9:29 from Colorado, and Aaron Booby Goats at 9:29. Bob Black. Good morning, everyone. I almost overslept. Well, you're close. You're close. And today, and I have something special for you. Are you ready? Ding, ding, ding. A real bell. Congratulations, Gary at No Slow is the first one at the bell. 9:30. Good morning. Meat deal hunters and stockers. Yes. Good to see you, Gary. You are today's winner, followed shortly after by Lady June. Don Schonger, good morning, Don. John Logan says hi. B81 Mac chimed in. Jerry Hall is here. Good morning, everybody. Smoothie chimed in at 9:30. Bryce Hatch, Pamela Suarez, good morning to you. Dixie Scott, 9:30. Everybody piled in at 9:30. Look at that. Tina Schweikerath. Tina, what happened to you last night? I was waiting for you to come back. Sammy Shuford, yes, good morning, Mitch. And a question from Michael Pregler. Are you getting any exercise? Yes, Michael, I am. I'm doing push-ups and some squats and just ramping up back into it. But it feels good. The flu is, I think, completely gone. And my lungs feel clear. Not coughing. I haven't coughed this morning. There may still be a little clearing the throat involved, but no, I'm getting over it. Want to get back into it because I miss it. I do miss it. Edward Renner, 9:30, the last of the 9:30s. Good morning from Seattle, Edward. And then at 9:31, Chris Swain chimed in. And let me just look at my show notes here. And let me also take this opportunity to throw my Buy Me a Coffee link in there, because to me it's important. To me it's important. So I'll throw it in there. It's in the show, always in the show notes. And you guys step up and you do help support this whole mess, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm thinking about making another breakfast cooking video. I have some things that I think might be an interesting subject to talk about this morning. So whether I get it out today or tomorrow, there's going to be another one of those coming, and I'm about ready to do another walk and talk, which I may do tomorrow morning before the live stream. If this morning was overcast, but if it's a nice morning tomorrow, earlier in the morning we'll take a walk, take the camera with me, and try to pontificate about something that people might find interesting, because that's about all I can do. I'll let you know when my first skydiving video comes out, but don't hold your breath. So Chris Swain, good to see you this morning from down under, I think. Jemmett says, can't wait to see Lewis tomorrow. Yeah, about 10 o'clock. We're going to have Lewis in here. We're going to talk about his experiences on Mounjaro, which is Ozempic, basically, GLP-1 agonist, and be interesting. Be interesting to hear his story. It'd be nice to have him as a guest. Looking forward to that. I didn't see Lewis in here yet this morning, but I'm sure he'll be around. Let me see. Show notes. Put QQQ if you have a question. As many Qs as you think would grab my attention as I scroll by in the chats, and I'll try to do the best I can to give you a common sense answer to whatever questions you ask, or even if you've got a comment or something you want me to bring to the attention of everybody. Put some cues in front of it and I'll find it, and I'll get through the whole chat before the end of this stream, and hopefully you'll be sticking around and hear the answer to it. If not, the answer will be in the replay, because the replay is always up there. Gary bought me a coffee. Wow, thank you, Gary. Gary says, I appreciate you, Mitch. Gary is no slow. Thank you so much, my friend. And I don't know, maybe try a different device next week if you got a tablet or something. If your cell phone audio doesn't seem to work. But I missed you. It was a shame. I was happy to see you come in there last night. And I don't know, as pretty as you are, it didn't mean much if we couldn't hear what you were saying. But thank you for the coffee, my friend. I appreciate that. Appreciate the thought. All right, I talked about the QQQs. I have to announce Lewis. I did that already. I had a funny thing happen on the live stream last night. I wanted to tell you guys this story because it was just funny. It was just funny. I have one of those Ring doorbells, and nobody ever comes to my door, ever, never. And my door doesn't face the street. It faces my carport, and it has a motion sensor in it. And if somebody happens to walk by it, I get this loud ringing chimes sound on my cell phone to tell me that there was motion. And if somebody rings the doorbell, I actually hear a voice say, someone's at the door or whatever. And it's a pretty handy thing, but nobody ever comes to my door. Why would they? I don't have any friends here. I don't have any reason for anybody to come knocking on my door. So I'm in the middle of a live stream last night, and the motion sensor goes off, and the chimes ring, and the doorbell rings. And I had 3 people in the panel at the time, and I clicked my Be Right Back screen that I have. There it is, the Be Right Back screen. And excused myself and left the 3 of them to their own devices, and they evidently didn't miss me, but I went and answered the door. And on the way to the door, I yell out, "Who is it?" And I hear a young lady on the other side of the door say, "I have your Chinese food here." Not words I'm likely to hear out of the mouth of any human being, let alone at my front door at 7:30 in the evening. So I open the door, and there is this, I guess, early to mid-20s young lady. And I'm not being judgmental, but not in the greatest physical shape, like most young people are today. And she's got this huge bag. I said, "I didn't order any Chinese food." She looked at me very puzzled. And I said, "What's the address?" And she read off an address, and it was one house over from me. So she apologized, and I said, "Fine." And I said, "It's really funny that you're bringing me Chinese food." I said, "Right now I'm in the middle of a live stream. I have a YouTube channel. Guess what the subject of my YouTube channel is?" And I said, "It's carnivore." And she knew what carnivore was. And I said, "Yeah, I haven't eaten anything that even resembles what you've got in that bag for over 2.5 years now. I eat only meat." And she looks at me, and she probably weighed 30, 40, 50 pounds more than I did. And she says, "Well, maybe that's what I need to do." I said, "It wouldn't hurt." She says, "What's the name of your channel?" Not that I expect her to have remembered it, but I told her the name of my channel. And I'm going to check it out. And I went back in, no Chinese food in hand. And I thought that was funny. I thought it was very ironic. Ironic that my live stream about carnivore be interrupted with a Chinese food delivery. I see. What is it? Jason H says, "LOL, thought maybe you ordered a pizza." Nobody delivers anything to me. I don't use any of those food delivery services. I don't use any of those shopping delivery services, nothing. I go out and I just get it, whatever I need. Whatever I need. I did want to share this with you this morning. I just thought it was very, very funny. Brooke sent me this. And it's a meme, and I like memes. And it basically had to do with eggs in Florida. And I thought you'd all get a kick out of it, so I'll show you this this meme here. Let me get it up on the screen. That's not it. That's it. And it says, "When you bring home those discount eggs you bought at a farmer's market in Florida." How funny is that? How funny is that? And I said to myself, how do you know what kind of egg you're cracking open when you buy eggs? Maybe that actually has happened. I have never myself personally handled or seen an alligator egg. I don't know if it looks much different than a chicken egg, but it is still an egg and probably would be just as good for you because it has all the same nutrients in it. It has all the nutrients needed to build a live animal of some sort. So, but I thought that was a great little meme, and thank you. Thank you so much for sending me that. I wanted to share that with everybody this morning, and I hope you get a kick out of it. Where am I? Anything else in my show notes that I wanted to talk about? I have a note to myself to talk about this if things get slow, but I'm not going to get into it now. And I wrote down, why add carbs back ever? Because that seems to be something that you hear a lot about in the keto and carnivore community. It's an elimination diet, and then it's assumed that you're going to maybe want to add carbs back. And I say to myself, why would anybody, once they've rid themselves of carbs, put their addiction to sleep? Why would they want to add anything back, especially things like vegetables? And then I put, why do you want to? So that'd be a good topic for maybe a video, maybe a good topic for a walk and talk or something to kind of espouse my views on that subject for me personally, because I doubt, unless there's some real medical reason that comes along where I figure out that I need some carbs, and there's a lot of people who think that that's true, although I don't know why. I doubt, I have no desire to, or why after all this time I would ever want to add carbs. And yet, there aren't too many people who ever start carnivore. Can't even calculate how low the percentage might be. That 2, 3, 4 years without any plants or carbs like I've done have gone the rest of their life without falling back into for whatever justification or reason that they think. So I did want to say that. And I am now 20 minutes behind, 25 minutes behind in the chat, so not as bad as it usually is, but let me start looking for questions. Francine says, wow, Mitch, love the greaser and the cup. I don't know what you mean by greaser, but I'm glad you like the cup. And the cup, Francine, is sitting on the Francine Bourgeois coffee warmer. I gave it a name. And the coffee in this cup is still hot. Everybody's saying hi to everybody. Ace is here. Hiya, Ace. How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Florida says, I think I still have the Dunlops, but still Dunlop over the edge of the Red Cafe School. That's cute. I like it. I like it. Scott Elliott says, ready for spring, done with snow. I don't blame you. Not that I've had a lot of snow this year, but I'm done with the cold. I'm done with the sweatshirts, I hope. I want to put that stuff away. I'm still wearing sweatpants today. It was a little chilly out there this morning. I want to get back to my little shorts. And my daughter bought me 2 beautiful pair of shorts with those Christmas presents that she sent that go nicely with those beautiful tropical shirts. And I'm going to have to play dress up one day, I think, maybe, for these live streams. And forget the T-shirts and dress up nice for you in all my new Christmas clothes from my daughter. And I think sometimes, if not for my children, I'd never get any new clothes. Danny in Boston's here. Good morning, Danny. How are you doing? Good to see you this morning. Aaron saying good morning again to everybody. Always good to see you guys. Retired Rick is here. I made carnivore ice cream last night. Going to try it later. Heavy cream and eggs and salt. Yeah, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing in there that's bad for you. The only danger, I think, is of eating any, let's call it a healthy carnivore version of a food that we tend to associate in our mind with a treat or a reward and have all our lives, like ice cream. That for me, it was a terrible trigger, always. And it usually caused me to start binging on fruit. Excuse me, I don't have a runny nose, but I have a wild mustache hair that seems to want to climb up my nose, and it's driving me nuts. It means it's time for me to trim my mustache again. I don't like to get out of hand. So once a week or so, I take my electric trimmer with a fence on it and trim it down. So I have what they call tonsorial splendor. If any of you remember that that the word what tonsorial means, and that's what they used to call barber shops. They used to call them tonsorial parlors. I don't know why. What's that's got to do with tonsils, if anything, but when you hear somebody talk about tonsorial splendor, it means their hair is very well manicured and they're clean shaven or whatever. So Rick, anyway, I know Kiltz pushes the ice cream. I know that, but he's cut way back on it, and he was making a vanilla bean paste and putting some cane sugar in it. And he finally realized that that is a slippery slope. And at his barbecue, he actually cooked up or made up a batch of his ice cream, and it was out there, a little small bowl of it. And I actually had, there was no sugar in it. There was some vanilla bean in it. And I took a taste of it, and everybody was complaining that this has no flavor. To me, it was sweet as hell. I have been without sweets for so long that even the tiniest little bit of anything that has a sweet taste just jumps out. And I ate 1 teaspoonful of that ice cream, and I said, this is dangerous for me. Dangerous. Even though it was only eggs and heavy whipping cream and a tiny little bit of paste made from a vanilla bean. It's dangerous for me because it reaches into my subconscious, goes directly for the memories of the pleasure that I used to get from eating ice cream, no matter what kind of ice cream, and the binges that would always come, the inability to not eat all of it. And I would go to the drugstore at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes with the intention of just buying a pint, just 1 pint. To me, that was, not much more than a spoonful of ice cream, but to a lot of people, a pint of ice cream is enough for 3 people. But no, I would go into the Walgreens drugstore, and I would go in and look for I would make a deal with myself. Okay, Mitch, you know how we rationalize these things. 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up with a craving for ice cream. I get dressed. I know there's an all-night Walgreens right around the corner. I get in my car. I'm driving, trying to say to myself, what the hell are you doing, Mitch? This is crazy. You don't want ice cream. You don't need ice cream. Why the hell are you in your car? Did I turn my car around? Hell no. I get to the drugstore. I go to the freezer thing where the ice cream is, and there's all the signs. 2 for $1. And then they always got the half a gallon of something, usually Bluebell ice cream, which is pretty good stuff. And they got a half a gallon that doesn't cost about the same as a pint of Ben & Jerry's or Haagen-Dazs. And bargain hunter that I am, I say, well, hell, I may as well get the gallon because it's such a deal. And I would always go home with either 2 pints of Ben & Jerry's, because it was always 2 for $1, or a half a gallon of something, with the intention, the good intentions and the promises to myself that I was only going to eat 1 small dish of it and put the rest away. Now, from my history, I should have known that that was not going to happen, that was impossible. But my addiction wouldn't allow me to think that rationally. I was still in dreamland, fantasy land, about how much control I actually had that I'd never been able to exhibit before, but I was convinced this time. And this was the last time I was ever going to go to the drugstore at 3 o'clock in the morning and buy a gallon of ice cream. But I went and I bought it, and I got home, and in the middle of the night, I ended up eating 3/4 of that half gallon of ice cream until I couldn't eat another bite. I was getting sick from just so much sugar. And at that point, inevitably, after the addiction is satisfied and your conscious thinking and rational brain is turned back over to you, that's when the shame, the guilt, the inevitable question to yourself, what the hell was I thinking? And that's when that happens enough, you begin to realize you weren't thinking. You were not thinking, because if you were thinking clearly, you would not have driven to the drugstore at 3 in the morning, bought a half a gallon of ice cream, knowing you have never, ever been able to resist eating it until you are sick from it. But the one thing I did learn, that I did remember in that newfound state of rational consciousness that my mind gave back to me at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, was that if I put the rest of that half a gallon in the freezer, I would be back to finish it within 20 minutes. And I would turn on the hot water in the sink. This is what I would do. In my guilt and shame, I would pour what was left of that ice cream into the sink and watch as the hot water melted it and that ice cream went down the drain, saying to myself, I'm proud of myself. Look at the willpower that I have. I only ate 3/4 of that half gallon, but I am disposing of the other half because I know, now that I'm in a rational thinking state of mind, that if I don't dispose of it, I'll be back for it. It takes 20 minutes, half hour tops, before that feeling of having too much sugar wears off a little bit and the craving comes right back. Your mind gets turned off again, and you're on your way to the freezer to finish it. And when you finish it, the urge to get back in the car and go back to the drugstore and buy another one is overwhelmingly strong. But thank goodness I was always able to fight that urge. That would have been absurd. But that's how addiction controls us. And it was just episode after episode over years and years and years of that kind of behavior that convinced me I have no willpower. Nobody has willpower. If everybody had willpower, we wouldn't have the problems. We wouldn't have the obesity epidemic, the diabetes epidemic. We wouldn't have any of that stuff. Nobody'd be a carb addict. But you look at it and you observe it and you look inwardly and you be honest with yourself enough about your own behavior and put your ego and your narcissism aside for a while and admit to yourself, I have a problem. I'm not perfect. I have no control. I'm weak in that respect. And then you're admitting what everybody is, but nobody will admit to themselves. You're an addict. And that's when I started and actually started to succeed, became a carnivore, and the rest is history. Now I don't want the ice cream. But that 1 teaspoon of the Kiltz's ice cream that I ate at that barbecue started to bring it back to me. I could see the door open and I could see the slope on the other side. But fortunately, my addictions have been gone long enough where the sleeping beast stayed asleep. Might have moved around, changed its position a little bit, but didn't wake up. And I'm afraid that if I ever go down that sugar, that sweet tasting pathway, that I will wake that beast up again. And like always, let's see, which side of my shirt do I need to pull on to straighten this? That way. There we go. It's all backwards, and it's not like looking in a mirror. I'm actually seeing myself as if I was standing in front of myself. Every left is right, right is left. That's why people in YouTube videos, they point, and they're always pointing at the wrong thing. CB Carmack says, I tamed the beast. I did. That was the title of my book that I wrote 24 years ago. Taming the beast within. I long ago recognized that animal beast that lives within all of us and is really who we are at our core and controls all of this. Not only our physiology, our body chemistry, not only our urges, desires, it controls how we even think and how our brain works, because it has to accomplish what it needs to survive. And we are not in charge. And as the sooner that we realize that we're not as strong as we would like to think we are, we can stop feeling guilty. And they certainly want to make you feel guilty when their way of getting healthy and losing weight doesn't work. Who do they blame? Do they blame the stupid propaganda that they rely on for all of their methods, advice of healthy living? Eat less, move more. No, they blame you. They blame you. Well, you're just eating too much. Well, you're just not moving enough. You're not exercising. You need to eat less and work harder. Well, eating less and working harder is a formula for certain failure long term. It's torture, number one. Humans can endure torture only so long. Nobody can endure that kind of torture for a lifetime. Nobody can endure overworking themselves, underfeeding themselves, and fighting and denying the cravings for a lifetime. A human being does not have the constitution to do that. And none of those diets work. None of them do. Everybody that has gone through Weight Watchers has gained it all back. Everybody. Everybody that has gone on the Nutrisystem thing has gained it all back. Everybody that has bought a gym membership, worked their ass off, maybe lost 10 or 20 pounds, starved themselves, gave it up. The only thing that I found sustainable, if you're a flaming carb addict, is carnivore. If you're just a mild carb addict, you can get by with keto as long as you stay away from the really destructive foods. And those are the grains, the seed oils, and the sugars, especially the refined sugars. And it just is what it is. It is what it is. And it just works. And how did I get off on this little rabbit hole discussion? What was I talking about? I don't know, but I think it was meaningful. I hope it was meaningful. I got to tell you the story of my midnight, 3 o'clock in the morning, regular trips to devastate my attempts at losing weight and staying healthy. But it's all true. And how many of you can identify with that? And that's the interesting thing. How many of you can identify and say, wow, I can identify with that? I think most of you probably can. Most of you probably can. Where was I? Further and further behind. Let me, Jebet says, my daughter sounds sweet and care. My daughter is a sweetheart and a carb addict of the highest order and struggling every day of her life. Struggling constantly, and not making any headway against it. And it's the saddest thing that I watch. But there's nothing I can do about it lest I drive both my children away. I've talked about that many, many times. Rick says, that's really an old-fashioned looking virtual background. Yeah, it is. It's an old diner. It's the kind of diner that's always been there in my life, that you could always find in every small town, usually full of old farmers and people stuffing their face. That's with greasy food, which turns out is the healthiest food we can eat. Greasy animal food. The greasier, the better. The grease is the fat. It's been so demonized. The spoon is much better if it's greasy. It's better for you. And this kind of restaurant epitomizes the greasy spoon, and I think it's an appropriate background for this when I'm not outside. When I'm outside, the background is the wall of my house behind me and the plant, the plastic or synthetic artificial bird of paradise plant that's older than some of you, I think. Oh. So I'm reading the chats. I'm up to 9:41. Half an hour behind. Not too bad. I'm looking for questions. I'll start to speed up a little bit now. Got through. I think that's all I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to show you the alligators coming out of the eggs. I thought that was cute as hell. I thought that was very cute. Nancy Berkey says she likes the walks. Yeah, I got to start skydiving. Not necessary. Thank you. Thank you. I've been a pilot all my life. I've spent a lot of time in the air. And a pilot, most pilots view skydivers in one of two ways. The first way is, why would anyone want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane? That's just pilot logic. Secondly, there's an old saying that there's only two things that fall from the sky. Two things that fall from the sky. And they would be fools and bird shit. And I kind of subscribe to that too. So I have never had the desire to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. However, I flew aerobatics. That was kind of a passion of mine, to go up there and get upside down. And the law requires, when you're flying aerobatics, that you wear a parachute. I still have my parachute. I wouldn't use it. It's probably all moth-eaten. They have to be inspected on a regular basis and repacked and recertified. But back when I was flying, of course, I always had that done. And I would not fly aerobatics, either in my Belanca decathlon, my decathlon, which was a high-wing aerobatic airplane, or my home-built biplane, single-seat biplane. I would always wear a parachute. And the seats are even designed to allow room in the back for the parachute. And they have what they call five-way harnesses as well. They go across your waist, across your shoulder. I mean, you're strapped in. You're not going anywhere. You roll that airplane upside down, go 0G. You're not even coming out of the seat. You are part of the airplane. Sometimes I would think, could I even ever get out of this airplane if something broke? Especially if it was spinning and there were tremendous G-forces one way or the other. But I wore the parachute, but fortunately I never had to try it out, never had to use it. But it was the law. It was the law. But I don't want to be skydiving. I think I'd probably get a lot of views on a video if I went skydiving, however. Michael Pregler said he jumped twice. What a rush. Oh, I'm sure it is a rush as you see that ground rushing up to you. I'm sure I would probably get hooked on it. It is an adrenaline thing. I know many people that skydive regularly. I don't think it's unsafe either. I think it's a matter of anything else. I think you got to have the right equipment and trust it. Florida says Mitch's greasy spoon would have had lots of cigarette smoke in the 60s. Yes, it would. And I got news for you. It was probably a much healthier place, even with all the cigarette smoke and all the greasy food, than a Starbucks or a vegetarian restaurant is today. Those people, think about it, were not sick and fat and diabetic, and they weren't dropping at the rates of heart disease and heart attacks that we have. They didn't lose their brains. They were 70, 80, 90, 100 years old, filing into these kind of restaurants every morning, pack of cigarettes in their pocket, plate full of bacon and eggs, and their morning coffee. Cup after cup after cup, as Flo the waitress wandered around with her bun coffee maker, Pyrex glass thing full of coffee, refilling, unlimited refills. I know that because that's what I used to go to eat breakfast most of the time. One of those kind of places. There are very few, and they're very few and far between now. And I hope that background that I found, even though it is sans the diners and the smokers, will bring back some memories to some of you that are older. I like that. That's a great comment. Retired Rick has a question. I haven't read it yet. Mitch, he says Whitehall is good cholesterol. I don't know what that means. Maybe you dictated that into a voice chat and you meant to say what is good cholesterol and what is bad cholesterol. My doctor yesterday said carnivore is going to make my cholesterol go up. I'm confused about what's good or bad. That is a great question, Rick. And I want to take a few minutes to answer that, even though I've talked about it many times about cholesterol. I'm not going to tell you not to listen to your doctor because I can't do that. There's too much liability. But I can tell you with no liability that I would not listen to your doctor. And it's up to you to either agree with me or disagree with me. Oh, cough. Oh, no. Still a little scratchy throat. Tiny little bit. God, go away already. I need more coffee. Maybe a shot of carnivore champagne. Little San Pellegrino. There's almost nothing left in this bottle. It's almost empty, but there'll be a mouthful there should I need it. All right. I'm going to take that off the screen so as not to cover up my beautiful self. The whole concept of good cholesterol and bad cholesterol is a scientific and physical impossibility. That's like saying there's good oxygen and bad oxygen. There's only oxygen. It's like saying there's a good form of any compound or a bad form of any compound if each of those forms is identical in molecular makeup. Pure, clear water, distilled water, that has no impurities in it, that is pure H2O, is only water. It can't be bad water or good water. Only something else, some impurity, could make it bad water. Otherwise, it's just water. Cholesterol is a sticky, fatty substance that has a particular molecular structure. I'm going to Google it. Give me a second. Cholesterol. Oh, my typing is so bad. Cholesterol molecule. Let's see if I can find a picture here that I can blow up and show you. Okay. That right there is a cholesterol molecule. That is cholesterol. It is a certain combination of hydrogen atoms, oxygen atoms, and carbon atoms. The stuff of life. It's the same basic ingredients that all fats are made of and all sugars are made of. It is, if you go by the definition, a mixture of carbon and water. That is a hydrated carbon, carbohydrate. So cholesterol could be called a carbohydrate, even though we refer to only sugars as carbohydrates. It's still all made from the same stuff, just the atoms are arranged a little differently. It's like rearranging the furniture in your living room. It's still your living room, but there's something different about the way that it used to be. How could there be a bad cholesterol or a good cholesterol when there it is, right up there on the screen? There it is, cholesterol. And here's many more depictions of the same molecule, the same structure. Draw it out however you want. And it says here, a cholesterol molecule is a steroid molecule with a chemical formula. Here it goes. C27H46O. That means it has 27 atoms of carbon combined with 46 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen, arranged like you see it in this picture, and that is cholesterol. It is neither good nor bad. It is cholesterol. And in the human body, cholesterol is necessary for so many things. Without it, we could not live. It's a building it's fatty, it's spackle, it forms the basis of our cell walls. It is a precursor to most of the hormones and vitamins that we need. It is one of the most important compounds that the human body makes. And when the human body needs cholesterol, in 100% of the cases, it is good. It's necessary. If we didn't need it, we wouldn't make it. It's absolutely essential for your brain to even function. It's so important for the brain because it creates what they call a myelin sheath, the insulation between the neurons, between the connections of the neurons in your brain, to keep them from short circuiting. Your brain could not work without having cholesterol. Can that be bad? It's so necessary that even though most of the cholesterol that we have is manufactured in our liver, that our brain manufactures its own cholesterol. It's that important for the brain. Cholesterol. C27H46O is cholesterol. It's not LDL. It's not HDL. VLDL. Triglycerides. It's not any of those other things that you think when they measure your lipids. The one thing that they don't measure is actually the cholesterol. They're measuring something called lipoproteins, which are not cholesterol. And they have determined that some of these lipoproteins are good and some of them are bad. And that's nonsense as well. Nothing we have in our body naturally can be bad. If it was bad, it would have been evolutionarily eliminated from the programming millions of years ago. We only have those things. We only make those things that we need to live, that are selected as necessary in the next generation. And cholesterol is one of them, and so are LDL, HDL, VLDL, IDL, chylomicrons, and all of the other lipoproteins that are not cholesterol. What they are vehicles that carry anything that is based on fat, like cholesterol is, like so many fat-soluble vitamins, like triglycerides. They carry that non-aqueous water-soluble stuff through the bloodstream like a fleet of FedEx trucks carries packages along highways. And the bloodstreams, our highway, are lipoproteins, which include all the LDL, VLDL, IDL, HDL, chylomicrons. All that stuff is just a lipoprotein that happens to be at a different size or density in its job of delivering cholesterol and other fat-soluble things to every cell in the body for a lot of reasons. And because of Ancel Keys, he equated cholesterol with lipoproteins, and it has stuck, and it's still the de facto common knowledge of today in the medical community. And when they talk about LDL, they call it cholesterol. When they talk about the total of all of these lipoproteins, they call them cholesterol. The only thing they have in common with cholesterol is cholesterol happens to be a cargo in the lipoproteins, and how much of that lipoprotein's cargo happens to be cholesterol depends on what the body needs and where it needs it. It's folly and stupid, illogical, cannot be in any real physical world that there is a good or bad cholesterol. And we've discovered so much about it that any doctor today that bases his entire treatment and medication and medical advice on the number of your one number LDL and wants to make you artificially lower it is killing you. Is killing you and killing your brain and your physiology, which will eventually lead to all of the chronic diseases. And there are no medical studies of any validity that prove otherwise. And all the medical studies that I've looked at actually do prove otherwise. It's people like me, thin, low BMI, healthy people with screaming high cholesterol that are the healthiest and live the longest. And yet, the doctors panic when they see those numbers. It is nonsense, and you cannot change it. Unfortunately, you can't change it, Rick. You're never going to convince your doctor otherwise. You're never going to convince the medical community otherwise. You're never going to convince anybody otherwise. You have a choice. You can let your doctor scare you. You can let your doctor educate you with propaganda and impossible misinformation that cannot logically, in any real world of chemistry and physics, cannot be what they say it is. You can ask him to show you the evidence, and they will pull out studies from drug companies that are statistically manipulated to show the tiniest little benefit of a statin. And that's all they can do. And even those are phony. Or you can research and look for studies that show exactly the opposite. You can watch the videos of people like David Diamond, Malcolm Kendrick, Ken Berry, Anthony Chafee, and that whole crew talk about it ad nauseum. I talk about it ad nauseum. About the meaningless number that they call LDL. It is meaningless. Unless it has to be taken in the context of the overall health of the individual. Which is sad to say. So that's my answer to that. What is good cholesterol and what is bad cholesterol? That question itself is moronic. And the fact that our entire medical community, hospitals and doctors and drug companies and prescriptions, they're all built around that one moron statement that can't possibly even make sense in any real world, that one molecule of exactly the same thing as another molecule, one molecule could be bad and one molecule could be good. It is what it is. It is cholesterol. It is not lipoproteins. And lipoproteins are very complicated. Again, without them, we would die. Our blood would just become a river of fat, like mixing grease and water. They won't mix. The grease will always float to the top. And that's what would happen in your blood if you just poured the fats into your blood directly. Because blood is water-based, not fat-based. So it needs the little trucks, the little vehicles, which are water soluble when their doors are closed and the cargo is safely stuffed inside and can be transported through the blood without clogging things up. One of the functions of these lipoproteins has to do with our immune system. And this is I want to go through this too because it's important, and I may miss some questions down the road. I'll try to get to them, but this is really at the heart of why most of us who've learned this stuff and studied it rebel against the bullshit that comes out of the medical community and all these so-called doctors and experts. They have bought into. Wow, Rick says, awesome, Mitch, thanks. I hope I'm going to finish this up. Well, maybe I said enough. Maybe I should just leave it there because that point should sink in. Should sink in without trying to overcomplicate it anymore. But the study of lipoproteins and how they work, you marvel at the elegance of the whole entire system. And just to close us off with one last point, the reason they think that cholesterol clogs the arteries is because back in the 50s and 60s, when they did autopsies of the very few people that actually had their arteries blocked up with some fatty, sticky substance, they found cholesterol at the site of these blockages. That cholesterol was delivered to the site of the blockages by lipoproteins. So, of course, they found LDL particles at the site of the blockage. We have an analogy we use today about the firemen and the fire. Every time you go to a fire, chances are you're going to find fire trucks and firemen. Well, the fire trucks are the lipoproteins and the firemen are the cholesterol. But they didn't start the fire. They didn't cause the fire. They responded to a fire to fix it. And that's why you find LDL and cholesterol at the site of artery damage. It's because the artery damage was caused by systemic inflammation. It gets sore inside your arteries. Instead of being nice and smooth, having a nice smooth glycocalyx, it gets a little rough. It gets inflamed. Triggers an immune system response from the body. The immune system dispatches all these little ambulance-like vehicles, which are the LDL particles full of cholesterol. The cholesterol is then used to try to putty over and smooth over this rough inflammation. And that's normal. And if that happens often enough, and you stay inflamed long enough, and you're always inflamed, and your immune system is always responding, and you keep piling more and more and more of this spackle on top of the rough artery walls, it eventually becomes plaque. And eventually it will build up to the point where it blocks your arteries. But it's not the fault of the firemen or the cholesterol. It's the fault of the fact that your lifestyle is keeping you inflamed. And inflammation is the cause of all coronary artery disease, not cholesterol. Stop blaming the firemen for setting the fires. Give them the credit for doing the best job they can to put the fire out. Because that's what cholesterol does. But being part of the immune system response is why we find it in places where there are injuries, because it's used for repair. Cholesterol is a very important structural component of the human body. It's that simple misunderstanding that has somehow survived 70, 80 years of misinformation and propaganda and misunderstanding. And to this day forms the basis of a medical community driven 100% and solely and only by the greed and corruption of those who profit from the diseases and illness that go unchecked or even made worse by this simple misunderstanding. And you say, how the hell could that happen? How the hell could there be so much suffering? How the hell could my loved ones have suffered and died because some drug company is pushing all these statins and everything? I can't tell you what to do. Can't tell you whether to ignore it or not. But I can tell you that the answers are out there. And I do my best to tell you my opinion and what I've learned and believe to be true. But I legally and morally can't recommend that you do exactly what I do. And I'm very careful, and I draw that's a line in the sand that I will not and never cross. But the information is out there. So start looking for it. Watch Nina Teicholz talk about cholesterol and the hoax. Watch Gary Taubes. Watch Malcolm Kendrick. Especially watch David Diamond. And pay close attention as they explain the fraud and how they get away with it. Then you're not just taking Mitch's word for it. And if you can manage to wade your way through them and learn how to read a study, sometimes reading these studies is an eye-opener because you go, holy shit, what a fraud this is. How could this possibly be used with any credibility for any reason in the medical community? It is pure unadulterated fairy tales. At any rate, there's a long answer. I think an answer worthy of me cutting this little segment out and making a standalone video about it. I might just do that a couple days down the road. Because what I just went through may be the single most important thing that any of us can learn. Trying to convince ourselves that not following all this stupid advice and getting sick like everybody else is and fat like everybody else is, and that when you look at the carnivores like me and so many others, what do you see? You see thin, healthy looking, older people with no disease, with no medications, with no drugs, and no need for these doctors unless we break something. And yes, at that point, we do need doctors. And decide for yourself what makes common sense and what doesn't. Retired Rick says, Mitch, you're awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I long for those kinds of questions because that's the level of understanding I have of the physiology behind it, where I can hopefully do what I do, and that's why they call me the professor. Teach and explain things in ways that actually make it understandable if you don't happen to be a biochemist. And I do know this stuff, and I know it intricately. I try to entertain, but boy, when I can go down these paths and maybe help some people have an aha moment or an epiphany and say, wow, that really is bullshit, isn't it? And if you challenge your doctor, he'll just get mad at you. If, his ego is big enough already, he's not going to accept a challenge from somebody who hasn't been to medical school. Well, what did they teach you in medical school, Doc? They taught you the dogma of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the fact that Ellen G. White wants men to stop eating meat because it causes them to masturbate. Therefore, you shouldn't eat meat, it's bad for you. That's the basis of all this stuff, and everybody should know that who's a carnivore and in this community. They should know where all this bad advice came from and who made all the money on it and who's still making all the money and why the Advent healthcare system is the largest in the world and why they own all the universities that are teaching doctors and why they write all the curriculums that are teaching doctors and why their whole message comes right out of the Battle Creek Sanitarium with Harvey Kellogg telling you that breakfast cereal is the most important meal of the day and meat is bad for you. Learn where all that crap came from and then study Ansel Keys, one of the greatest con men in history, who's responsible for billions of deaths and yet still lauded like he was in the 60s on Time magazine as the savior of the world because he discovered what he called the diet heart hypothesis and linked dietary cholesterol and saturated fat with all the wildly increasing heart disease. This guy right here, one of the greatest, as far as I'm concerned, criminals and idiots and morons that ever walked the face of the earth, and yet the most successful, because we're still buying into his shit today. How could that be? And why isn't RFK Jr. talking about this? Yes, I know food dyes are bad. They cause all kinds of bad things, autism. I know that we need to get rid of the food dyes, but that's not the real problem. Our adherence to this guy's theories is our real problem, and they've been proven a fraud long ago, and we talk about that a lot too. And it is so frustrating when I listen to people tell me, oh, Mitch, your cholesterol, your LDL is 450. Surely you're going to be dead within days if you don't get yourself in the hospital on intravenous high-dose PCSK9 inhibitors and statins to get your cholesterol down to near, as close to zero as possible, which would certainly kill me. Certainly kill me. How do you argue it? You can't argue with them. You're going against a system so well established, so well propagandized, that you're always going to be wrong when you talk to any of them. And all we can do to show that we're right is outlive them. And that's what I'm trying to do here on YouTube. And just come on here every morning. I'm almost 78 years old, and people say, look at this old fart. Look how sharp his brain is. I don't know another 78-year-old that can just talk off the top of his head like that, let alone be right about everything. Why do you think that happens? Why do you think my whole physiology performs at this level at my age, when most 30-year-olds can't perform at this level? Maybe I'm not the greatest athlete in the world, but I'll match my intellect against anybody. And that's because my brain has what it needs. Plenty of cholesterol, plenty of fat to repair itself, to insulate itself, and to work so that I have mental clarity like I have never had in my life at any age. Never in my life have I had a better grasp of reality and how things work and relate to each other than I have right now. And that's what I offer here. Call it wisdom, call it insight, call it whatever you want. I just happen to have it. It's not my fault. I'm not any better than anybody else because I have it, but I got it. And I recognize it. And I try to spread it around a little bit. Oh, yeah. Oh. All right. What time is it? God, it's 10 to 11. Let me race through the chat here and see if I can find some more questions. There are, of course, today. Dan Galasso, question, feeling depressed. My son has Crohn's. We got him to try carnivore for a week and a half. He's threatening suicide. So the wife is buying him sauce with canola oil in it. Oh, man. How do you deal with that? First of all, just going on carnivore for a month is probably going to make you feel worse. It's not going to cure your depression. It's just a beginning. Just a beginning. The only absolutely demonstrated way to put Crohn's in remission is to eat no plants. And there are so many people, even though the medical community says it's just not a curable disease, we got to load you up with medicine, drugs, steroids, but you can pretty well count on losing your colon at some point in the fight, like Lee Copus, Kent Carnivore, did. I've known people with Crohn's. I've suggested carnivore, and I got my head bit off. How dare I? They have the best doctors. How dare I offer somebody false hope when they suffer so much? I keep my mouth shut now. If somebody comes and says they have Crohn's, I say, wow, it's a horrible thing. I don't even suggest carnivore to them anymore because I don't want to get my head bit off. That's how they are. And I can understand them being that way. I had this guy told me, would you tell a man in a cripple in a wheelchair that you can make him walk and give him false hope? That's cruel. You're a despicable human being. Get out of my face. Okay. Sorry. And yet then I go on and I see, 100 testimonials on all the other YouTube channels of people that had Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, which is much worse than irritable bowel syndrome. But IBD is it. That's when, you're risking losing your colon. And I can understand why he would be depressed because it's a horrible thing. It ruins your life. It dominates your life. This guy at the gym that gave me the hard time almost ran me over on his way to the bathroom, yelling, sorry, I got Crohn's, sorry. And then he comes out of the bathroom. I say, have you ever heard of carnivore? And he went off on me. I mean, went off. I understood, but I never talked to him again. Why would I? I know the answer is his only shot. He already has had a third of his colon removed. If he wants to save the rest of it, the only thing that I've ever seen or anybody's ever seen that fixes that is a pure carnivore diet. But it's not going to fix it in 30 days. And if you got a depression problem and you're worried about suicide, your son may, and I can't give you advice, but your son needs some kind of professional help and maybe even some bridge medication, some antidepressants or things to get him through this. And that has to be done by a doctor who understands. But absolutely buying him sauces with canola oil is not the answer. Those sauces are probably all plant-based. They're all sugar and seed oils, and you have a problem, Dan. You have a problem, and you need to make your wife, I can only say, try the best you can to make your wife understand. Other than that, I feel for you, man. I feel for you. I've dealt with that. Not my own Crohn's, but trying to help people in the past. And I can understand why it would depress you. And the only solution, deal with the depression and somehow educate them. Find all these YouTube videos of people who've cured Crohn's. I don't care if you got to tie your son to a chair and your wife. Make them watch these things. Talk realistically about the downfalls and some of the trials and tribulations you're going to go through as your body starts transforming to the physiology that it's supposed to be, which is using primarily fat for its metabolic fuel, not sugar. That's about the best. Everybody's sympathizing with you. Yeah. B81 Mac likes the alligator eggs. Yeah, that was cute, wasn't it? Oh, Rick says he's eating iguana eggs. I'm sure they taste like chicken eggs. They're pretty much got the same stuff. Maybe the DNA is different. The instructions and the blueprints about what animal to build out all that yellow goo is different, but the yellow goo is the same. Because I don't care what kind of animal or living organism you are, you're still built out of all the same stuff, just arranged differently. All houses that you see, no matter how much different they may look, are still built out of concrete, wood, stone, or any other combination of the same building materials that you can find at any Lowe's or Home Depot. Same thing with living things. The genetics and DNA that make a dinosaur come out of an egg aren't much different than that make an alligator or a chicken come out of an egg. So I'm sure iguana eggs probably okay. People eat ostrich eggs. They eat all kinds of eggs. The eggs may look different. Jemmett says, Mitch, you have questions. I'm getting to them, Jemmett, but thank you for reminding me. Oh, yes. Everybody's chatting away. What time am I at? About 10 o'clock. Oh, geez, I'm almost an hour behind, but that's okay. I'm going to find the questions, and I got news for you. Every one of these questions, every one of them that I answer, like I just answered that last one, should be of tremendous interest to virtually everybody here, not just the person who asked the question. That's why I look for the questions. So I want to help. I'm not always right. I know it. I brag about the fact that but I know that there may be some things that I'm mistaken about. But I do the best I can and try to only tell you things that I'm absolutely firmly convinced of. Firmly convinced enough. And let me use this as a kind of a scale. Anything I say to you on this channel, I have bet my life on in my own actions. And unless I'm willing to bet my life on anything I tell you and whether it's correct or not, I won't say it, which is why I don't answer a lot of questions, because I'm not at a point where I can be convinced that I would bet my own life on my answer to that question. That makes me one of two things, either a brilliant man or an absolute moron idiot. Because maybe I'm betting my life on things that aren't true. But to me, they're true, and to me, I'm convinced. So it all boils down with any advice you listen to. I don't care if it's your white-coated doctor with his shiny stethoscope or some guy standing next to you at a urinal giving you advice. The credibility in your mind of who's giving the advice, and that's all that you can judge when and I put it out there and try not to hide anything. Tuka earlier gave me a little super sticker. Thank you so much, my friend. Good to see you. I hope you're feeling better. Tuka, I hope you're feeling better. Here's a comment from Hoang Ling. Mitch, carnivore for 2 years, very strict, 63-year-old. Sometimes I feel tired during the day. Could be my age. Is there anything I might be missing? Increased energy levels. Well, you've been carnivore for 2 years. You're very strict. I don't know how much you move. I don't know whether you're getting enough food. Maybe you're not getting enough food. There could be many reasons. Sometimes I get a little tired during the day, too. Sometimes we just need to rest. Could be your age, but maybe not. Because I know a lot of 30 and 40-year-olds that have to take a nap every day or they can't function. I don't think eating sugar is the answer. It might give you a shot of energy and make you think you're feeling better, but I might try to move more, make sure you're getting good sleep, de-stress your life a little bit. That's about the best advice I can give you, not knowing you or any of the fine points or particulars, but it's not uncommon for any of us to get tired sometimes. Even I get tired sometimes. And the older I get, I think the more frequently that happens. Sometimes I might just get moving around. Depends how much you sit around, too. If you sit around all day watching YouTube, yeah, you're going to get sedentary and you're going to get tired. If you're like Michael Pregler here, and spend half your life in the gym, you're going to feel great all the time. Isn't that right, Michael? Smokey Bear Lovers here today. Steve McAvoy is here today. How you doing? And Florida. Dan Galasso, get him back to the dinner table with you and your wife just because. If you live up north with no sun now, consider giving him a vitamin D3 supplement. I don't think that's bad advice. Before I started taking any vitamin D or any supplements, I would at least have an idea of where my current levels of that are. You may not need that particular supplement. The problem may lie elsewhere. I don't think you can assume one thing or another because you're depressed you need vitamin D. I know that it's probably true because most of us probably do need. I supplement vitamin D. But I wouldn't have started it without having had that blood test first. It showed me that my vitamin D levels were 30, which is the absolute bottom of what they call the normal range. And by supplementing 5,000 international units a day for 1 year, it went up to 64, which is right in the middle of the range and perfectly fine for me. So yeah, get him to eat the right food. No plants. I think that might be the best chance he has of healing. But I think if you're worried about his depression and you're worried about possible suicidal tendencies, you need to get outside help. And that's not always easy to find outside help that actually knows anything. How many experts do we pay big money to that do nothing but make everything that they touch just that much worse? It's terrible. Very frustrating. Very frustrating. But everybody's helping everybody. Question, Mitch Carnivore 263, could be my age. Yeah, you repeated that question for me. And Tour asked the most important question, how are you, boss? And my answer to that question is always, if I was any better, it would be illegal. And I'm an hour behind in looking for these questions, so I'm going to have to stop reading these things now to respond to them. And I just want to make sure that I find the QQQs. So I'm going to race through what's left of the chat because this has gone on long enough. I'm afraid that I'm hoping I don't see I see a good attendance here and people are hanging in there with me, but there's always tomorrow. I'm here every day. I got a lot to say, but I have plenty of time to say it. Jerry Hall says, stop talking and get me a coffee, Mitch. Don't you work there at Mel's Diner in the kitchen? That's funny. That's funny. Has anybody bought me any coffees? Gary did. Gary bought me 5 coffees this morning. I didn't notice that earlier. Thank you, Gary, so much. Very generous of you. I appreciate you, Mitch, he says. No slow. Gary, no slow. Very nice of you, my friend. Very nice of you. And for those of you who feel the burning desire to say thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Mitch. We want to help you out. We want to buy you a coffee. There's the link again. Never miss an opportunity for a shameless plug if I can get away with it. And what else is happening here in my email? That's about it, I think. I think that's about it. Okay. Super, super. Thank you, Jerry. No, I'm sorry. If I had a Pyrex thing of coffee here and you were sitting on one of those stools, I would be very happy to pour you another cup. Anytime, anytime. Question says, Rick, am I the only one here who has ever been addicted to carbohydrates, or as you call them, duck food? It is duck food. No, you're not the only one here, Rick. If you weren't addicted to carbohydrates, then you might be the only one of those. But I think we're all carb addicts, and I think that's why we're here, because we finally recognized it. And carnivore, as far as I'm concerned, is the only sustainable way to get rid of that addiction. And I keep using alcoholism and drug use as an example. You cannot, once you discover you are an alcoholic, and I think almost everybody that drinks at least one drink a day is an alcoholic, but they don't consider themselves an alcoholic. But if you need one drink a day, you need alcohol. If you need alcohol, you're an alcoholic. The only way to stop being an alcoholic is to never drink again, not a drop. Period. End of story. Same thing with drugs. Whatever the substance that you use is. Our problem is in most addiction treatment, we don't cure anything. We just replace one addiction with another. So if you were an alcoholic, now you become a heavy smoker and drink a lot of coffee. So now you've replaced the alcohol with nicotine and caffeine. That's the problem when you're a carb addict. You're trying to take that away without replacing it with 6 other addictions at the same time. Am I still addicted to caffeine? Maybe a little, but I can live with that because when I look at my overall health, it doesn't affect it. And maybe the fact that I get a little caffeine in me helps me not miss the sugar as much. Who knows? We're all a little different in that respect. Everybody is very chatty today. Wow. Good to see it. And I'm up to 10:19, so I'm going to catch up. I'm going to catch up here. I'm going to try to find the QQQs. And, wow, I'm racing through it. 10:26. Still a half an hour behind, but we'll get there. I will get to the end of the chat, and I will address any QQQs that I see. Hopefully you guys maybe slow down in the chat a little bit. Carried 140, 150 people through this whole live stream. That was great, guys. That was great. Hung Ling says, Mitch has motivated me to learn more about cholesterol. I hope so. We need to know more about this than our doctors, which ironically is not a very hard thing to do since they actually don't seem to know anything. They remind me of Mackey, Mr. Mackey on South Park. You all know Mr. Mackey. If you've watched South Park, you know Mackey. Drugs are bad. Drugs are bad. Okay. Drugs are bad. Well, every time I think about cholesterol, I see Mackey going, cholesterol is bad. Okay. Cholesterol is bad. That's the medical community. That's the limits of their knowledge and what they were taught about the biochemistry of lipoproteins and cholesterol, which aren't the same thing. And should be obvious to any first-year med student who's had Biochemistry 101. They were too busy getting laid and getting drunk during that first year of college, which is the prime reason most kids go to college in the first place. It's to get drunk and get laid. And they do plenty of that. Ask me how I know. I've got grandchildren in college. That's just reality, friends. Pardon the silence. I know sometimes it looks like I don't move much when I'm scrolling, and I may have frozen up, but I don't freeze. I'm not frozen. I'm still going. I'm still scrolling. I am at 10:47, sneaking up on it, just looking for the questions. Here's one. Our bodies replace ourselves on an ongoing basis while on carnivore. I heard that we draw from a more ancient DNA and we become different. True. I don't think that's really true, Wong. We draw on what DNA we have. Our DNA is a database of instruction sets to build proteins. Which of those get what they call expressed is a whole nother story. It's a whole nother story. And it's the expression of those genes that determine which new proteins are manufactured in our cells. And that's another area that is so complex, how the genes work. And as or more important than the actual library of instructions itself is something what is called epigenetics. I would love to have the time today to go into a 1-hour lecture on how DNA gets expressed and how epigenetics plays a role in determining which particular piece of that 3 billion long instruction set that is our genome is actually pulled out of storage, unwound, opened up, transcribed, messenger RNA, mRNA, a peptide strand of mRNA is created, mirroring the code in that recently opened up, unfolded, and exposed strand of our genetic code, which exists in a chromosome, tightly packed, wound up with histones wrapped around. And the chemistry that is epigenetics, that is responsible for exposing a particular instruction set called a gene to be transcribed and then sent out of the nucleus into the cell as a strand of messenger RNA, which is then glommed onto by fabulous, fabulous molecular machinery called a ribosome, which then, pulling one amino acid at a time out of the cytoplasm that surrounds it, builds a protein. It is an amazing, mind-boggling process. And you can't talk about genetics and the effect they have without the epigenetics that actually are making the decisions of which genes get transcribed or get expressed. It is another one of those biology rabbit holes that can take you into years of study. And I can just tell you, if it gives you more confidence in what comes out of my mouth, I understand it. I've been studying it for decades. It fascinates me more than anything, the complexity of it. And there's a lot of answers in that complexity. And it's not something I can just, you can't just say our bodies replace our cells on an ongoing basis. Yeah, that has nothing to do with it. Whether you're on carnivore or not will affect your epigenetics, and in turn will affect which proteins get expressed based on what your body needs. So yes, in that respect, the diet affects everything. Not just in gene expression, but in the availability of all of those materials needed at every stage along the way to become part of a new peptide chain that's being built that eventually might become a protein. So it's very, very complicated. It can't be simplified down to a statement like that. But you can, I think, rest assured that your machinery is going to work more efficiently and more like it's supposed to if you give it the proper nourishment. And that's why I say keep it simple. That's the most important thing we can do, is make sure we have the materials we need. You can't build a house unless the truck comes with the wood and the cinder blocks and all that stuff. I don't care how good the blueprints are. I don't care how smart the builder is. If the truck doesn't come and there's no building materials, the house isn't going to be built. Well, the body's the same way. Body needs that truck to come every day. And that truck, which is nutrition, needs to have virtually everything that's needed everywhere for every chemical reaction that happens in this marvelous organic machine that we call a human body. And it's the only thing that we consciously can control. And it's the only thing that's really the only input we have into all of that chemistry, unless we try to manipulate it with drugs and other things we shouldn't be. But that would put the pharmaceutical companies out of business, and they don't want that. Be a world full of healthy people eating the right food. Instead of all these cookie factories and donut shops, there'd be big green pastures with millions and millions and millions of healthy cows and chickens wandering around. Am I getting anywhere near the end of this? 10:52, yes I am. I'm sneaking up on it, but I have been hitting these questions. Some of them require long answers. I've answered them all in videos. I have 500 and some 30, 40 videos out there. And I know that in some of those videos, I've touched on a lot of this stuff. Tall Cedar says, hello, all question. Have you heard the latest on the cholesterol code? No, I haven't heard the latest. I understand how I understand cholesterol and how it works, and the cholesterol code was a good book, but I don't know. I haven't heard the latest. Maybe you can tell me what's different about the latest and the iteration before that, and whether you think it actually has any credibility to it. I did it. I am at the bottom of the chat. Let me ring my bell again. Y'all like my bell? I thought rather than just go ding, 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 sometimes when I get to the end of the chat, I give myself a round of applause and a little happy music. And we haven't had enough happy music today, have we, guys? And as we come to the end of the chat, Jerry Hall says, woo-hoo, Mitch, yes. Spanky, where the hell you been, man? I'm done. Get out of bed earlier. Where were you last night? Hi, Spanky. Good morning to you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Jemmett says, Professor Mitch, meat and music. Yes. Thank you, and thanks for your confidence in me. And I think I'm steering you correctly. And maybe what I say isn't for everybody, or the way I say it, but it's gratifying to me to see a nice little crowd of people here every day, and to be able to go down some rabbit holes. And you can't repeat this stuff too often. There's always new people. So take a few minutes, say goodbye, or a minute or so, say goodbye to everybody in the chat. Spanky says, dance, yes. And I see Smoothie saying goodbye. Anna, PLO7, goodbye, Mitch. She says, Tammy Pitarch, thank you, Mitch. You're welcome. Thanks, Mitch. Have a great day. I had a great day. I had a good time today. I was happy. It was a good stream. I think I put out some, hopefully, meaningful information that is food for thought and as a starting point maybe for some of your own learning adventures. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes. And I'll tell you, if you remember only one name from all that cholesterol stuff I spewed out here this morning, remember David Diamond. Go out there, if you like watching YouTube videos, and just type David Diamond in the YouTube search bar and just start watching his videos. You'll learn so much about cholesterol and the fraud and the hoax that it's all been, and the way statins have been pushed as such miracle drugs when they are actually do nothing. And how bad an idea it might be to lower cholesterol, which is trying to be up where it needs to be because it's so important to our body. I mean, I can understand trying to do something healthy for yourself, but when you end up following the wrong advice and what you're doing is counterproductive and destructive, that borders on criminal. And the people that are giving that advice should be removed from any pathway that involves advice on how to live and be healthy. At any rate, everybody said goodbye. People are starting to bail out. Great to see you this morning. Great to see you. And as usual, my friends, I will be back tomorrow morning. I'll be here at 9:30. I'll probably be outside because I did fix my computer, which was the reason I couldn't do my live stream from outside last night. Between yesterday morning's live stream outside and last night, I let my computer do a Windows update, and that Windows update rendered my computer useless. As I'm trying to get ready to do my live stream from out there, the stupid thing kept crashing, and I kept rebooting it, and I finally gave up, grabbed the mixer and all that equipment, came inside here to the studio, did my live stream from inside last night. But after my live stream last night, I took my notebook computer and I actually went back and recovered to a previous version of Windows, removed the newest update, and the thing started working fine again. I could have done it this morning, but it wasn't really as sunny as it could be when I was out there, so I decided, well, this would be a good morning to get a new backdrop, get a greasy spoon thing going, download some kind of bell sound effect, and this is a It's a boxing ring. And I like it. And I'll have to put it on my notebook so I can have it outside too. But anyway, guys, until tomorrow, 9:30 a.m., the first morning coffee with Mitch in the month of March. You guys take the rest of the day off. Thanks again for coming. Thanks for any support that you've given me. Much appreciated. And I will see you tomorrow. But while you're taking the rest of the day off, don't forget to eat some meat.